Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's another Wednesday. It's another episode of the Weekly Technical Forum, sponsored by Love My Tool. Today is my great pleasure to introduce one of my old friend and mentor and really hero. As you know, I've been kind of retired from my last company, and in building my last company, I think one of the events that really helped us along was to be able to attend Interop and to be part of the InteropNet. And that was the first time that I met our special guest today, Glenn Evans. Good afternoon, Glenn.
Good afternoon, Denny. How are you?
Very good, very good. So you didn't think that I was still around, huh?
Well, it's like everything in this industry. Paths cross, ships sailing in the night, and every couple of years, it's a full circle.
Yeah. So let me just do a really quick introduction, as if Glenn needs one. All of us know about Interop. Interop is really the go-to place for anyone who sells equipment or software solutions. Most of us know of it as a show held once a year in Vegas, but in fact, it's held 3 or 4 times a year. And right now, the two major events is Vegas in the summertime, and then the one in New York in the wintertime. And one of the things that is unique about Interop is that it really interoperability is really the name of the show, and it really started out as a playground for a lot of different vendors to figure out how their equipment can talk to each other. And so having a live network emission, well, actually, as Glenn was mentioning, that the genesis of the Interop was really a playground, a laboratory, and then somewhere along the line, it became more of a showcase, and then but in any case, Glenn has always been involved with that. Glenn, maybe you could tell that part of the story better than I can. What exactly, we kind of know what Interop is, but what exactly is InteropNet, and then I guess InteropNet Lab, right?
Yeah, sure. Up until probably 1999, InteropNet was the network that all the exhibitors and the attendees interacted with at the event. And it was a pure lab environment. They had, ATM, FIDI, Fast Ethernet, Gig Ethernet, various flavors of connectivity. And the exhibitors would choose what they wanted to connect to based on their technology that they were trying to demonstrate. And that was all well and good, but as the industry matured in the late 90s, people started realizing, hey, there's a fair bit of money involved in this. Yeah, we don't want a network that's going to go down all the time. So the event producers decided to split the program up slightly and created 2 elements. The InteropNet, which is the production element, which essentially has to work, and that provides...
Uh-oh. He might come back. I don't know.
The attendees register a targeted playground or a targeted demonstration environment for new and upcoming technologies. And that sort of was going quite fine until probably the late 2000s. And then, the industry had sort of stabilized, and I wouldn't say it had gone backwards to a little bit, but there really wasn't much happening that was new and exciting.
Glenn, you kind of dropped out a little bit.
I'm sorry.
At the very critical point, which is really making the distinction between the Interop Lab and InteropNet, and then also the InteropNet. And so, I would it be fair to say is one is where the suits are, and the other one is where the denims are?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, one's where the money is, and the other one where the money wants to be.
Right. Now. Let's focus on we'll come back to all that.
Sure.
I mean, we could talk for 3 days actually, if we want. But let's just we have a job to do. We have a job to do today, which is to really talk about Interop New York. How is from a infrastructure standpoint, from your standpoint, in terms of building the network and managing the network, what exactly? How is the New York show different from the Vegas show?
Well, historically, Interop has always had an InteropNet production network. For 2014, what we're doing in New York is actually not doing that. We're leveraging the in-house network systems. The Javits Center, which is where we're located, has recently upgraded their total environment. And we're essentially going in there to give it a bit of a stress test. But that said, we still want to have the InteropNet name out there. So we've developed a lab or a demonstration area based on a concept that we introduced about 3 years ago called software-defined networking, which everybody's heard of course. Our original concept was based on the OpenFlow 1.0, 1.1 standard. And we were looking, it's been 3 years, and our thought process was, well, has this technology or concept matured to a point where it's now viable for enterprise networks? And that's really what we're going, that's the sort of the mindset we're going into this lab with in New York this year.
And so there is a hot stage element to that, right? So the people who participate at SDN had already met in California and put the system together, and they're ready to, or have they already shipped, or they're ready to ship to New York?
That's correct. Yeah, they are ready to ship. But funny enough, well, I shouldn't say that. We actually have the gear still operational, so people can get in remotely and update the demonstrations, do some tweaking to configurations, and it allows us a bit of time to develop things. Yeah, as you and Tim both know, it might look easy from an outsider's perspective, but there's a whole heap of work that goes in behind the scenes to make it look easy. Yeah, we've got probably half a dozen odd companies coming together to build this lab, and they're looking at it in a number of different ways, and trying to get those guys all on the same page, making sure the equipment will talk to each other, making sure our demos or design concepts will work, is really the goal behind Hot Stage.
So would it be fair to say that if I were a potential attendees, I'm thinking whether or not I should go attend the Interop New York. I'm trying to make the justification to my management to send me there. This is a unique opportunity for me to really not only see some of the state-of-the-art in SDN, but I actually get to talk to the technical people behind the technology, right? It's not like I just go and talk to a bunch of marketing people, right?
Oh, you're very correct in that. The lab is a pure technical demonstration. Yes, okay, I'll be honest and say, yeah, there is a bit of marketing behind it. We've got to try and, as an event producer, we're trying to add value to,
of course, yeah,
the participants in the lab or the demonstration. But the people who are manning the booth or manning the demonstration stations, who are talking about the equipment and the demonstrations, are the guys who actually built it. They're the guys who configured the equipment up, came up with the concepts and the designs for the demonstrations, and put it all together, and worked out the bugs when it didn't work.
So give us an idea, just kind of drew into my head. Give me an idea. What does this look like? Is this a 10 by 10 booth where everybody kind of shoulder to shoulder, or is it more involved than that?
Well, we actually have a 30 by 30 space with a custom build out sort of right down the middle. And we've sort of split the demonstrations up into 3 silos, or for want of a better phrase, verticals. We have a HP doing OpenFlow-based SDN demonstrations. We have Big Switch, which is one of the major players in the whole SDN space, with their Fabric, Big Switch Fabric network, which was originally designed for data centers but can be applied and implemented within enterprise WAN environments or LAN environments. And they're also looking at virtual packet broker type networks as well across SDN networks. And we then have a pure, let's throw a whole heap of gear together and see if we can make it work, that's based around pure OpenFlow switches, or in some cases open compute platform switches, with open daylight, OpenStack, so all the orchestration type things. And that to me is one of the really interesting things, because I sort of, as I get older, I tend to get a little bit lazier and try and find, I wouldn't say that, I'll try to work smarter about what we're doing. And my ultimate goal, I think, and goes towards the InteropNet as well, is to try and find a system where I can design a network, draw it all up, draw the links, find out what I want to do and where the clients are going to plug in, push a button, and it goes out and configures itself. When things change, you make the changes and it automatically updates. That to me is sort of the panacea. Whether we're going to get there or not, I don't know, but I think this is one step along that path.
And if I remember, if I remember correctly, also that the lab is really, it's a meritocracy. I mean, sure, you know, money has something to do with it, but you can't really buy your way into the lab. I mean, the lab really represents state of the art, right? It really represents the thought leaders in that sector, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's to some degree it's the bleeding edge. You know, we go in there with the best intentions of having everything working and the demonstrations are perfect. The reality is something's going to mess up, or we're going to mess up. There will be a code bug somewhere, or an ASIC will fail, or something like that, and we'll have to try and work and debug on the fly.
We used to always joke about it that there were 3 rules of networking. Rule number 1 is something's going to happen. Okay, whatever you do. Rule number 2, if it doesn't happen, get ready because it will happen. And rule number 3, ain't nothing you do about rule number 1 or rule number 2. It's going to happen. So,
yeah.
Do you also do Las Vegas, New York, India, Tokyo, London?
I only do the North American shows. We don't have an InteropNet in India. We don't have one in London as yet. There's talk of doing one in 2015. And the Tokyo guys are on a different planet. They do their own thing.
They do their own thing,
And in reality, it's a pure logistics issue.
Yeah.
Many years ago, it used to be a traveling event. We had gear here in North America that traveled the world. We had ShowNet 1, ShowNet 2 kit that went around the various places. And if the show was large enough, we'd combine the whole lot together and create.
When I was running my last company, we didn't attend Interop New York Tokyo because it was actually run separately.
Correct.
It's almost as if UVM licensed the name to a separate group, and so they have very different culture there. People actually, if I remember right, they actually work like 3 days. I mean, nonstop, trying to get the lab together and all that.
Yeah.
They take it very. I mean, you really have to commit kamikaze if it doesn't work. I mean,
very much so. Yeah. The Tokyo event is essentially modelled on what we used to do in North America 15 years ago. They've still maintained that model. Yeah. And away they go.
Glenn, I really want to talk about you and your company as well, but let me just kind of wrap up our responsibility to our sponsor and talk about go back to Interop New York. And what I wanted to do is I want to give you an opportunity to explain what SDN is. In other words, imagine that I am a network engineer working in a investment firm somewhere down in the basement. I don't ever get to see the light, right? And this is my job. And I really think that SDN is important for our future, our company's future. I need to run up the floor to talk to my boss to explain to him, why he should send me there. So give me some verbiage. What exactly is SDN? Why is it important? And why are you so behind it?
Oh, some very tough questions there.
He's a dreamer. That's why he's behind it right now.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a dreamer. Yeah, and I'll be honest and say, SDN, okay, it's software-defined networking, but what that actually means, to me, and that's to me has been the problem with this industry segment. It means different things to different people. I think at its base level, it's about being a lot smarter in how we build, design, and operate networks in general. And we're talking about computer networks here. And this is local area, wide area, overall systems. And the basic concept behind SDN is decoupling some of the control functions from the data functions. And then setting policies to say, hey, listen, if we see this traffic just let it go, because it's not a great problem. But if we see something that's out of the ordinary or hits a certain policy based on business rules or common sense or whatever, we want to investigate what's going on there, then make a decision on whether we allow this to pass through the network or whether we drop it off or do something like that. It also can be used to be a bit smarter about how we engineer or traffic engineer conversations between client and server applications.
Well, also SDN. Uh-oh.
Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
I was going to say one thing also about SDN that's great is you can have it. The network can change as you need it to change. Where right now we build a network and it stays pretty much static. You can implement changes during the day, implement changes during events. It's got some very good viability overall because it makes the network smarter, easy to manipulate, easier to upgrade, easier to make changes. So hopefully we'll get.
So the network is still based on hardware, and the software just gives it a little bit more intelligence and flexibility. Is that right?
Yeah. Much more capability, much more flexibility. It has its issues, but but like he pointed out, it means something different to everybody. Everybody's got a little bit different view of it. And Glenn, I hope we get you back pretty soon.
Well, I'm not even. I don't. The problem is that I don't even know if he knows that he had dropped out. But I'm pretty good talking about people behind the back, you know.
Well, you talk about them right in front of them, so. You know.
Well, but anyway, even if we don't, you know, we kind of finished the first half of the interview, which is to talk about Interop New York. When was the last time you attended Interop New York, Tim?
New York?
Yeah.
2006.
2006, yeah. I guess it's about right. My last show is probably that. And that was just when it first got started, really.
Right.
Right?
I think it was his second or third year.
Yeah. So.
And I thought it was great. It's not Las Vegas, but it is meant to handle that segment of the market. New York's a huge market, and that the Northeast Coast and South is a huge market, and Las Vegas doesn't serve that as well as it should.
Hey, well, Glenn was sort of explaining the difference between the InteropNet and also the lab part. From a vendor perspective, what's your take on that?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. Hey, Glenn, we got you back.
Yep. The joys of being on a hotel network.
Yeah. Are you wireless? Is that it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hey, I was going to mention one thing. Where did you get Acrux Consulting? Are you an astronomer by any chance, or have a history of astronomy? Or I mean, I know the star Acrux real well because I'm an ex-astronomer. And
well, to quote a guy called from a movie called Young Einstein, I'm actually an Australian, and part of the Australian flag, or one of the key features of Australia from an astronomy perspective, is the Southern Cross.
Right, and that's
the brightest star in the Southern Cross is called Alpha Crucis, which they shorten to Acru.
Well, they used to call it Acrucianimous because
So and when I was starting up a company, I thought, well, what can I was in London at the time, and I sort of, well, what can I do that gives me an Australian identity, but makes people think that was it.
Oh, that's great because I remember looking at it many times.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about your company then, Glenn.
Sure.
And so you kind of decided that you're too good for Interop. You're better than just serving one master. Let me put it that way. And you had a lot more to offer.
Well, I think I got imported into the country 2004 to basically run the Interop events in North America, And you moved to the Bay Area, and after you spend time in the Bay Area for a while, you sort of get this itch to go and join a startup for some crazy reason, because that's just what you do. So
look, Tim is laughing, but it's perfectly normal to me. I get it. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Exactly.
I know it's true. I know it's true.
So I sort of decided, well, okay, let's go out and try this startup thing, and yeah, it was great for a while. It got me to the UK, and we were doing some interesting stuff. But like a lot of a high percentage of startups, it didn't really pan out. And then I realised, well, and in that interim period, I was still involved with Interop as running a couple of their labs for a few years, and still had a hankering. It's one of those things that once it gets in your blood, it's hard to get out. This whole event networks and the adrenaline rush and things like that. So I started looking at positioning myself to become an event network specialist or temporary network specialist, and approached UBM and say, hey, listen, you're looking for services to run Interop and some of your other events, and they said, yeah, great. So that sort of got me back into the event networking game, and over the last 3 or 4 years, I've collaborated with some other event networking companies, and we've done Microsoft events and Nike basketball festivals and things like all sorts of really weird and crazy stuff.
So you're basically a masochist at heart. Is that what you're trying to say?
Pretty much, yeah. You spend 4 or 5 days building something, you operate it for 3 or 4, and you tear it out in 6 hours, and you go and do it all again.
I think I agree with that. I think he's definitely a masochist, but so are we. But you need more. I mean, I watch this guy work, and you need more than that. So when he talk about temporary network, you're talking about something that has to be brought together in a very short time frame. Yes. Has to work. Has to be toned down at just the right moment. So there's a lot of logistic issues.
Yes.
But it's more than that, because you got people working together. They never knew each other, or they knew each other. I mean, it's even worse than when they knew each other, because then they have history, and you just have to kind of you kind of have to develop this duality of personality where you have to pay attention to every single detail, but yet at the same time you kind of have to let it roll, right?
Very much so. Yeah,
I always thought that I have developed some theorem for startup, and one of which is called single malt, the conservation of single malt liquor. And I think Glenn practiced that really well, which is that if you don't drink too much when the network is working, you don't have to drink too much when the network is not.
Correct. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to. I mean, I see him, and he just have this really calm personality to him, even though he just like inside he just say, what the hell, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
So it does take. Of course he's a masochist, but
I think part of the trick is just part of this whole game, and networking, and even just the industry in general. It's about people. Anybody can buy a piece of equipment, plug it in, and make it work. But as you start to scale things, you realize you can't do everything by yourself. So you need to have good, reliable people around you, and you need to have them all working towards the same goal. So it becomes very much a management issue.
Thank you for that. It answers one of my questions. Because I actually when I was running my last company, there was one year where you weren't the lead engineer. Someone else was hired to do that. And I noticed that there was a difference. I can't quite put my fingers on it. You say that it's all about people. This other gentleman thinks that it's all about switchers.
Yeah. At the end of the day, equipment's just dumb. It's a dumb piece of equipment. To me, it's a computer. A computer is just a piece of equipment. It only starts to become useful when it has some interaction with an outside force, that being a person, the operator. If you don't have that person, it's just a dumb.
I went to your website and I read what you wrote for your website, and I actually picked out the word tribal, which is the word that I remember you used back in the days, right? And that you know, when you're building a temporary network, a show network, it really is important to realize that this is a tribe. These are
Yeah.
people that a tribe is what, how do we say that? A tribe is where there are no rules because but
Yeah.
everybody know what it is, right?
Yeah, well, I sort of say, it's a democratic dictatorship. Yeah, everybody's got input, everybody's got a say, everybody's got ideas, and it's important to hear those because that's how you learn. But unfortunately, in business, somebody's got to make a decision, and that's where that dictatorship comes in, and that's where essentially my role is to take input from the guys, get us all going down the right path, and when something goes wrong, work on, okay, what's the best way to fix this, and make the decision on how we approach things.
So what have you?
I'm the first to recognise I'm pretty dumb. I just know a lot of smart people, and know how to work with them.
What have you been? What does your company do now? That if I didn't know any better, and although maybe I do know about Interop, I'm intrigued by it, I'm excited by it, but what kind of skills do you offer that would go beyond Interop that would interest me as a potential someone who might want to hire you and for your expertise? Yeah.
Well, I suppose Acrux Consulting, it's a bit of a hybrid. Yes, there's the event network component and the ability to do things very quickly on the fly, get large circuits into facilities, bring a group of people together with equipment to make something happen. But I've been in the game for around about 25 odd years now, and so there's a lot, and seen a lot of the technologies come through. So it's more the other element of Acrux Consulting is the pure consulting side is bringing technology, business change, business strategy sort of services to companies. That
have you? I think we lost Glenn again, and I mean he would be a great
in some way, shape, or form.
He's back.
Yeah, that's really where I come in.
Yeah. Hey, Glenn, I know you have experience in startup, and I'm out of that space. I don't know how many startups are out there in the networking, but when you would serve, you would be great as a pay advisor, to kind of tell people, sometimes maybe something that they don't even want to hear, right? Be able to say, hey, I know how nice it looks on PowerPoint, but they ain't so, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose probably the key thing is just bringing some real-world knowledge or real-world expertise to some of the thought processes. Because I'm sort of doing this sort of stuff pretty much day in, day out in various environments, and you sort of think, well, listen, that's a great concept, but if you tweaked it like this, it'd actually be more practical for the guy on the street.
That's difficult to do because a lot of people, they purposely go out of their way not to hear the truth in a lot of places. But when you're working Interop, it's a must-have because you just got so much going on.
Very much so, yeah. And as Danny mentioned, we are a bit tribal. We have our procedures and ways of doing things, but we're all smart enough to realise that, is that the best way? Well, maybe, maybe not. So we're always willing to listen to other ideas. But I've been involved with Interop now since 1996. I first started as a volunteer back in Australia, just terminating cable. Funnily enough, just the basically one level up from sweeping. And over that period of time, we've seen a lot of companies come and go. We've seen a lot of equipment be introduced into the market, be debugged on the fly, and it's and gone on to mature and whatever. So do I know there's have I seen some of the skeletons in some of the vendors' closets? Yes, I have. Do I mention that? No, I don't. But I sort of take that sort of knowledge and apply it into the real world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
So you travel. I suspect you travel a lot now.
Very, yeah.
But you still
seasons.
your home is in the Bay Area,
Yep,
right?
based out of the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I've recently been travelling over to Boston and Rhode Island for a couple of projects over there, which are large transformation sort of jobs for some companies.
But just remember, Denny owes you lunch because he's real bad about paying up on those.
I've actually found him to be quite good. Yeah, I think the problem is you've always got to slip him some single malt as well.
Denny can do that.
Well, actually, that's one thing that Tim and I used to share, right? So,
and I suppose, like, you remember when you and I first got together, you came to me with essentially a nondescript black box and said, it does this. And I sort of thought about it must have been about 10 seconds and realized, hang on, this is something we've been looking for, or this is something that I can apply to a problem that I'm trying to solve right now, or that we've had over the last couple of years. And within 10 seconds, the box was in the network, or 30 seconds, the box was in the network and functioning and doing what we wanted it to do. Mm-hmm. So, and I think so, just the ability to recognize that, oh, hang on, that's actually a really cool idea, a really great idea. Let's try and see how we can use it, or let's try and solve a problem with it. And that box that you came to me with essentially started an industry segment that now has at least half a dozen to a dozen players worldwide. Yeah. And they're still trying to essentially imitate that original black box.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really a fun time. I really enjoyed that. That was amazing. That was back in. That
you
was
wouldn't hire me though.
Huh?
You wouldn't hire me though.
Yeah, but why would I do that? Because then I lose my job.
Oh. I sleep in two bathrooms.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I think the big thing, and this is something that I think I probably got out of Interop, going back to just Interop for a moment, is that there's always something out there, and it's just it's up to you to go out and look for it. And Interop as an event, while it may not seem like that much, it's the one place where you can go and essentially it's a supermarket for the industry. It's the industry supermarket. You can go along the aisles and shop and see the new products, or see the, let's say, the specials that are happening.
And talk to people.
Yeah.
That are in your industry.
Yeah.
Goober geeks, I call them.
Yeah, yeah. Like there are other, let's say, single vendor events out there, and if you're going down that path, they're great places to be. But if you want to see equipment, if you want to shop around and have a viewpoint of the industry and what's available, Interop's the only place around.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that it still amazes me after all these years, that we still have to explain to our sponsors that that what we do at Love My Tool obviously can be used as a advertising media. You can pay to put a banner, and you get clicks. But that's not what that's not who we are. We're here to build a community, and it's the same. Yes. It's the same with Interop. If you're the Cisco and the Extreme and the Foundry and so forth, and you're the big boys, yeah, of course you can think of it as just a venue to bring your salespeople and do what you have to do and entice people into your booth and give them a flashy brochure. But if you're a entrepreneur or you're a smaller company, the way to really make use of Interop is to treat it as a community.
Very
right?
much so, yeah.
Especially if you get a chance to, you happen to be a startup company in SDN this year. You just have to do everything you can to be part of that. But you don't get to be part of that thinking that you can just buy your way in. You really need to think of it as a community where you can contribute.
Yeah, and we are seeing that the SDN group, they do have their own foundations and their own sort of events that are based around that concept. But within the SDN, as part of a broader industry type event such as Interop, you're actually able to look at, well, okay, what is Cisco doing in that area? What are HP doing in that area? And look at how it applies to enterprises as networks as they are today, and how they will be in the future, and how you get to that state. And that's one of the things you don't get with perhaps, with the pure technology type, events or venues.
Yeah. So, is it too late now for people to be for any vendor out there, small vendors out there, to be part of the SDN initiative? It's sort of all done now.
It's pretty much all done, but that said, I'm still open to hearing what other people are out there, what people are out there, what they've got, and whether we can fit it in there. It may maybe a last-minute ad. If it could be just a software component that provides some extra functionality.
Yeah.
And we can slot it in there.
Oh, so exactly. I mean, that's how I did it, right? Just an orange box under my arm and a bag of fortune cookies. That helps.
Yeah. I was saying black box, not to sort of distinguish from I was being very discreet about it.
Yeah, the orange and the purple. That's already done. Yeah.
I was being very discreet with the black box thing, but yeah, it was the orange box. But yeah, and we're still certainly interested in hearing from vendors and people who are in that industry space who feel they may have some value to add. It may not happen this time round, but I think my goal with this particular event is to look at what's available and work out, can we apply this to a full-blown production network in Las Vegas next year? So the more information I've got means I can make a more informed decision on whether that's viable or not.
Yeah. Hey, Tim. Any question you might have for Glenn? That
No, I'd like to have his patience. I mean, he has to put it with people like Mike and you and me. Does he buy patience by a bottle, or how do you get it? Because it can get rough in there. I've been there.
As Danny mentioned before, like with Love My Tool, and we're all about building communities, and you realise after a period of time that everybody's got their own way of doing things and their own personality, and it's not wrong, it's not right, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is what it is. And that's the way I approach things. Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah. And you just
you also, I mean, like everything else, it's I remember back in the days when I was still running my own startup, you do need to be conscious of the critical mass. You do need to know that, okay, we got to get to that point, and once we get to that point, then it has a life of its own, and then it becomes sort of the magnet for good behavior. And so I think if you look around, I think it's not, I mean, there's a lot of people that Glenn surrounded himself with, Brian Chi and Padre, and and let's go on, and these people come together, and they really want to contribute, and then that becomes the core, and that's a critical mass, and then anybody else that comes by, they say, well, I have a choice. I could be a bitter old man, or I could just, like these guys, right?
Yeah. You can learn something from anybody. Everybody teaches you something, and I think that's the one of the good things about Interop Lab is you got this core group, but you got all these other people, and they're there to learn too. Anybody that comes in thinking they know everything need to go home. But it's that community. Let's all get together, learn something together. And hell, it's a great time to play with everything in the world. That's what I used to like about the lab.
Yeah.
Even while you were there testing one thing, you were teaching somebody else about something, or
exactly.
They were teaching you about something.
Yeah, and that could be something technical. It could be something, of a business in nature. It could be something. Yeah, it could be something totally random. You fix your car by doing this,
or you drink this single malt.
Yeah, or this single malt, it comes from here and not, it has this sort of flavor preference, whatever. Yeah, and you're right. It's all about. It's just about it's interaction with people, interactions with people, and it's conversations, and everybody has something to add.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody has, and it's part of my role and what I do with Interop with a crew is just listen to people.
Well, listen, it's almost 5 o'clock, not quite. We're still about 15 minutes away, but we mentioned single malt liquor so many times now that I really got to do something about that. Well, I do want to thank Glenn. I really want to. I mean, I know Glenn is extremely busy person, and I'm very happy that that he finds the time to talk to both Tim and I. So for those of you out there who actually either have committed to go to Interop New York or are thinking about going to Interop New York, you ought to go visit the SDN Lab. I think there's a link on the interop.com website that talks a great deal about that. And again, it's not every day that you're rubbing you're going to be rubbing shoulders with geeks, right? Each company are sending the best out there.
Or the ones that got out of jail.
Yeah, and so it's really a good opportunity to interact like that. And once again, thank you, Glenn, and I wish your company best of luck. And
hey, Glenn, if you ever want to write any articles, like if you want to write a post-Interop, this is what I learned at Interop New York 2014, we'd love to post it.
Mate, I'd be glad to, actually.
Yeah, actually, I think I mean, Tim and I would love to would love to help you or in any way for you to build, some more visibility to your company. So, we have so many ways that we could do that. One of the just popped in my head is this thing called that we call the shockfest.tv, where some of our authors and sponsors and so forth take the time out to really talk about the fundamentals of networking.
Yeah,
and they call it sort of vendor neutral, vendor non-specific kind of way. We can. I think Tim can follow up with you and think about how we could help you. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to, because part of my remit with a couple of companies is to actually just get information out there, whether it's from me or let's say event specific. That would be nice. But I think just part of what you're trying to do is build a community and just having people who can share their experiences. It's always a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Glenn. Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you very much.
Good luck, and I guess you have a lot more to do before Interop New York yet.
I've got, I'm in 10 days in Seattle. I've got 3 days at home. I've then got 5 in Chicago, and then I go to New York. So I'm actually home for 3 days in the next month.
Yeah. So this is probably not the reminder you want yet for New York. Okay. Thanks again. Bye bye.
All right, guys.
Bye, Glenn. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye.